For the longest time, I have thought that the WNBA was the wokest organization in America. Now, notice I did not say sports league. If you have been following this channel for a while, you already know how I classify the WNBA. The mainstream media might pretend that the WNBA is professional basketball, but here on the channel, we will never consider pretend basketball to even be on the same level as AAU. If we had an honest media, they would refer to the bearded beauties of the WNBA as professional trash engineers. But as you guys know, we do not have an honest media here in America. But anyway, for the longest time, the WNBA has been considered the wokest of the woke. Professional victims, purveyors of mythical misogyny, fight for trans rights. But we have a new number one contender. This group of women, some of which are begging to be men, they have committed themselves to fighting the good fight, preaching the good word, spreading the faith. They are proud members of Woke United Methodist. Matter of fact, their leader, Megan Rapinoe, more commonly known as the Sue Bird Impregnator, the hatcher of Easter eggs, Meg has become an ordained minister. She dedicates her time to Woke United Methodist, counseling young women who want to be men. But Maggie's getting a bit old. I know that according to Don Lemon, it is now a violation of the woke commandments to say this about a woman, but let's be real here. Megan Rapinoe has never wanted to be a woman. I know it's no longer socially acceptable to say this, but Meg is past her prime. She doesn't have many years left in soccer of not entertaining people by kneeling on soccer fields. A new leader is emerging on the U.S. women's pretend soccer team. She's an unlikely leader too because on the surface, she doesn't check enough woke boxes. She doesn't identify as a woman of color. She prefers men with a dong over men in a thong. When given the choice, she didn't run to Planned Parenthood. She chose a doctor willing to give her daughter life. Like I said, on the surface, she doesn't appear to check enough woke boxes to emerge as the leader of this group of victims. The only box that she checks is the choice to identify with a gender-neutral name. But 33-year-old Alex Morgan, she checks the most important woke box. You see, Alex Morgan, she is committed to fighting for the rights of Tran Dan. She has done the research. She knows prepubescent boys have no physical advantage over young girls. And trust me, Alex Morgan would know. She is an expert in this field. For well over a decade, she's played alongside America's favorite prepubescent boy, Megan Rapinoe. She has watched Meg struggle against biological women her size. Hell, she has seen Meggie struggle against other prepubescent boys. Several years ago, these women pretending to play soccer competed against a group of actual teenaged boys and got their ass kicked. Meg the Egg struggled so badly against these young boys, they allowed her to join the women's team instead. They knew there was no fucking way she was making the team when competing against boys her own age. Last week, we talked about pretend soccer player Becky Sauerbrunn writing an op-ed supporting the rights of Tran Dan to play sports with whatever gender he chooses to identify with that day. Now, there was some obvious pushback against the Becky. Normal people, they think it's egregious to allow young boys or men to compete against women. Alex Morgan, she delivered an impassioned sermon to members of Woke United Methodist, defending this article written by her sister in Woke. The Athletic transcribed a portion of the sermon. The inclusion of trans kids in sports is the inclusion of all kids in sports. The fact that this has become political is really, really sad. I think it's at the cost of trans kids' lives. What? Come again? You expect me to believe requiring kids to compete against their biological gender could cost them their lives? I did some research. I wanted to know how many kids have lost their life because they were forced to compete against their biological gender. I even made this research fair. I didn't want the shit fucks to accuse me of being biased. I consulted with the Magic Woke 8 Ball. I gave it a simple question. Magic Ball, please give me the answer. How many kids have lost their life competing fairly in sports? Shook the ball up, waited a few seconds. The answer came back, 0, you stupid fuck. The pleas of Alex Morgan or Becky the Sour Bun, they fell on deaf ears last week. Now you might be wondering at this point, where the hell is Megan Rapinoe? She's usually vocal on important issues like this. Right now, Meggie, she's too busy focusing on another important issue. She's upset about the fact that Visit Saudi, a tourist organization for Saudi Arabia, they are potentially sponsoring the Women's World Cup. You see what I'm saying when I say that these women are always complaining about something? Now, I don't know shit about this Saudi organization. For all I know, this could be a worthy cause to fight for. But I have become so jaded, so untrustworthy with Megan Rapinoe, I automatically take the opposite position of whatever issue she's fighting for. I mean, shit. This dude has become a professional activist. Megan Rapinoe's not known for soccer. She's known for tag teaming the woke cucumber. She's always complaining about something. She's always the victim. I figured once the U.S. men's team agreed to give the women money they haven't earned, that the women would be happy. But like I always say, there is no appeasing the unappeasable. You cannot give in to the shit fucks. They see it as a sign of weakness and will continue pushing for more. Once they received their woke welfare, the U.S. women's team, they focused their attention on the destruction of women's sports by allowing men to compete. Once the complaints of Alex Morgan and the Sour Bun fell on deaf ears last week, they decided to visualize their cause. Last night was a big night. Oh, last night was monumental. I'm sure you guys already know about this. I am positive you are watching the excitement unfold last night, because last night, it was the beginning of the 2023 SheBelieves Cup. She believes, oh, she believes that no one gives a fuck about this bullshit. For dozens of people, last night was what they call a big game. For normal people, the Super Bowl is a big game. For idiots like me who watch the NBA regular season, there are some big games sprinkled throughout the year. But I have never met anyone who thought a pretend soccer match featuring contenders from the woke beauty pageant was a big game. Last night, the pretend soccer players from America competed against Canada. Now, if you thought they competed in an athletic event, you would be mistaken. You see, the women of Canada, they are just as woke as the shit fucks here in America. They saw American women gain access to money they haven't earned last year, so the women of Canada, they're now demanding the same. The pretenders in Canada, they are now fighting for equality. We want to receive money that we haven't earned too. But last night, there was a more important issue at hand. This was bigger than money. I'm sure some of you thought I was making it up when I told you the shit fucks participate in community circle jerks. I wasn't kidding. Check it out for yourself. Before the game last night, women from both teams took to the middle of the field to fight for trans rights. We want Bill competing against Jill. They also wore these nice little wristbands that said, "We defend trans joy." No one is trying to take away trans joy. The problem is, you want to sacrifice the joy of 99.9% of other young athletes for the joy of 0.01%. This should not be an issue. No one is saying trans kids can't play sports. Just put them in a separate league. But you see, the problem with that is the shit fucks know there's not enough trans athletes to complete even one team, which is the reason they are trying to include them in young girls' sports. I'm not sure if you've noticed this. They never talk about inclusion in men's sports. Every time this issue is brought up, it's always about women's sports. Alex Morgan is so dedicated to this fight, she has decided to take it a step further. Remember a few minutes ago how I quoted Alex Morgan saying, "It is a shame this issue has become so political." Remember that? Well, Alex Morgan, she has decided to make it political. She has taken it upon herself to punish those of you that believe kids should compete athletically against their biological gender. Well, KC, what is my punishment? I'm glad you asked, my fellow logical thinker. This is not your typical punishment for violating the woke commandments. If you're convicted of mythical racism, the sentence is 90 days of sensitivity training given by the swan of swans, Talbert Swan. If you're convicted of mythical homophobia, they force you to enjoy the grilled woke wiener. Like I said, this punishment is completely different. The Two Girls, One Cup pretend soccer tournament, it's taking place right now in Texas and Florida. According to Alex Morgan, the U.S. women's team will punish those states by refusing to compete in future events in the area. That doesn't sound like a punishment. That sounds like a reward. If all it takes to make these insufferable women go away is publicly saying Megan Rapinoe has to compete against her biological gender, prepubescent boys, I think every state outside of the East and West Coast would be willing to say it. Alex Morgan, these other women on the soccer team, they should be begging for states to accept them. She shouldn't be worried about exclusion. She should be worried about attendance. Last night, just 10,000 people paid pennies on the dollar to watch this so-called big match. Exploria Stadium in Orlando holds over 25,000 people for soccer. I'm no expert in math, but I'm pretty sure that's well under 50% capacity. This is what happens when you give people free money they haven't earned. This is what happens when you hand out woke welfare. Alex Morgan, she's not fighting to make women's soccer profitable. She's not worried about making the sport more popular here in America. She's more concerned with Dan putting on a sports bra instead of a jockstrap. Give me your thoughts. Alex Morgan threatens to not play games in Texas and Florida. Sounds like a reward to me, but you let me know. Sound off in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys tomorrow.